Okay, yes it is. The Desert's Cry. A missionary observed an interesting happening one day in the desert. A nomad walked back and forth and time and again laid himself flat on the ground and pressed his ear against the sand. Confused, the missionary asked him, "What is it that you are doing?" The nomad got up and said, "My friend, I am listening to the desert crying. It wants to be a garden."
A garden?
The desert is crying. It wants to be a garden. Do we also feel this longing within us? Where do we experience desert? Desert in our own lives? Desert with people we know? Desert in our surroundings? The desert longs for water. Only the water of a spring can transform it into a garden. Where is there a spring that can transform my desert into a garden? Where is there a spring to which I can go anytime where I can fill up? From which spring do I draw water when I am tired?
The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground a bubbling springs.
God himself is the spring of life, the spring of love, the spring of hope, the spring of grace.
All of the springs within me have their source in you, O God. You are the water that fills me and satisfies my longing. Time and again, God allows springs to well up, springs where we find him, springs from which he gives us his water, springs that transform the desert of our life into a garden, springs that satisfy our longing when we draw from them. Our Schoenstatt Shrine is such a spring.
On October 18, 1914, at the hour in which the Blessed Mother seals the covenant of love with our founder and the boys, this spring welled up. Ever since then, Father Kinchnick and many others with him are convinced that our shrine is the great spring out of which all grace for us flows, the great spring that is also capable of making us happy.
Our shrine, a spring that wells up anew constantly in the more than 200 replica shrines across the globe. In homes of families and people who are a part of the covenant, everywhere where people live out of the covenant. Different members of our Schoenstatt family have expressed their experiences with this spring.
These are experiences that many people have had over the past decades. They come to the spring to satisfy their thirst for security and protection, their thirst for helping and living a Christian life and profile, their thirst for strength in the service of their family, the church, the world. And they discover the water that comes from this spring revives us. It allows all that is dried up to blossom again. It transforms the desert into a garden. We are also given the gift of this spring, the gift of the big spring that is capable of making us happy and holy. Let us draw from this spring, and water will stream forth for you and for me.
The jar is a symbol for the contributions to the capital of grace, for our living with our spring. Our small and big sacrifices make this spring carry currents of grace and blessing in the desert of our world and society. Today the desert and people's hearts call out to us, "I want to be a garden." Undoubtedly, we could not accomplish a greater apostolic deed, nor could we leave our successors a more precious legacy than to create an oasis of grace where Mary reigns as Queen and distributes her treasures and works miracles of grace.